Hello everyone, Linda Hayes here. Many of you have seen some of my YouTube videos about real estate investing and my path to Belize. So this one's going to focus on some of the lessons I've learned in Belize. So as an introduction, if you haven't met me before, I'm an accountant, but I'm also a real estate investor, and I've been doing that since 2006. And I started in short-term rentals in 2017. And I advertise on Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com. And I also have a direct booking website as well, so that repeat guests can kind of come and stay again at a cheaper price, avoiding the commission of these sites. And even during COVID for the last year, my occupancy rates, even if I look just at Airbnb for the last year, it says over 80%. And that doesn't even factor in the few bookings I got through Vrbo, Booking.com, and direct. But Airbnb is definitely about 90% of my bookings. So I do specialize in properties with garden suites, which are called laneway homes, they're called granny flats, they're called garage suites, and in the US they call them ADUs, accessory dwelling units sometimes, and also tiny homes. So on the pictures on the slides, the bottom one is my tiny home in Edmonton that I get possession of March 23rd. This is very exciting. Edmonton recently changed the bylaws where they allow they took out the minimum size of a property so that you can now build tiny homes as long as they're connected to city services and on a foundation or footings. So my tiny house is 320 square feet plus a loft, has everything someone would need to stay in it. It has laundry, has a little kitchenette, has a queen bed, and it's a very usable space. So follow along with the journey when it's decorated by looking at my website and subscribing to my newsletter there. On the top picture, that's one of my garden suites. It's a suite above a garage in the back alley of a property in Edmonton. And this one's just over 500 square feet with one bedroom, laundry, full kitchen, everything you'd need. So these are pretty cool new products, and I do have 2-bedroom units that are garden suites as well, and those are about 645 square feet because that's the maximum that the city allows in Edmonton. Above a garage is 645 square feet. So basically you can fit a lot in if you do creative planning, which is kind of what I like to do. So I found out about Belize through a friend in Edmonton that's part of my real estate group, and she basically told me about the Real Estate Guys radio podcast when I started talking about international investing. And she had been on 6 of their summits. It's a annual real estate summit that they do, and she said, yeah, these guys are great to listen to talk about, different markets in the US and some other countries, including Belize, obviously. And I also subscribe to International Living magazine. So I'm going to go through some of the items I've learned since being in Belize since 2020 that are different than what I expected. And if you want to see kind of how I came up with Belize and narrowed it down a bit, you can also look at one of my past videos on how I found Belize as well. So the first thing I want to say is that Belize is still my favorite place to invest. This graph is a good depiction of why that would be. This is from ECI Developments. So if you look at the bottom of the chart here, Nicaragua is at the bottom, and they say it's a product in an emerging market that could experience high levels of appreciation. And that they kind of have arrows going from Nicaragua to Belize, and they do develop in all these different regions in Latin America. And then you can see at the top, Pacific Costa Rica, they say their products in a mature market may cash flow. So you kind of see Belize is kind of right almost in the middle of this chart, and it's kind of why a lot of people are deciding they want to invest in Belize. So the activity here is huge in terms of the realtors are doing really, really well. So it kind of speaks to this chart in terms of appreciation. And there's land here where I've heard in 2008 it was $7,500 and now it's $35,000. And those are that's land that doesn't have any utilities on it, of course, and not beachfront for those prices. So the first thing I want to talk about is the difference working with a salesperson or realtor. So in Canada and the US, if you're buying a brand new home or condo, usually there's a sales center, and you know that person that's there is selling for that particular builder or developer. For resale homes, there's an MLS system, and the realtor, of course, can help you narrow down your options. If a realtor has listings that would meet your needs, they let you know because they're representing both parties. Now, the difference in Belize is that realtors do not need a license and there's no MLS system. So this makes it really hard to see what might best meet your needs. So if you're working with a salesperson or a realtor, you should ensure you visit without them as well, and I would suggest doing that first. So I talked about this in my international investing video with the Edmonton Real Estate Investors group that you can watch as well, but it is very important to look under your own lens without having a salesperson there, even though later on you can then go meet with the realtor or the salesperson and see the specific property that you're looking at. Another thing I want to talk about is buyer's agents versus seller's agents. So I had met a couple recently that said they met with a realtor on the island that said he is more of a buyer's agent. And he's promoting this because he said a lot of the realtors here are only selling their own listings so that they get both ends of the commission. So that was his perspective. And obviously in Canada and the US, we do obviously know who the listing agent is, and we have our own agents. So it's not something that people know about here quite commonly. And obviously because there isn't licensing, it's quite different. So the Real Estate Guys tour highlighted how many different products were available. And after the tour, basically the tour went from Friday night to Monday morning. At the end, after the debrief, there was only a few properties I was interested in as an investor. And that's mostly due to price point, looking for something under, say, the $200,000 US mark. But some of them I didn't even know about, despite all the research I had done. So one thing to consider if you're doing internet research is that commonly with the internet, the higher someone's marketing budget is, the more they will appear on the internet. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you're considering a purchase, especially in a different country, ideally you should stay in the property first and talk to existing owners. So if you can, for example, I stayed in one condo where I met some of the owners that they bought an up-down, I guess, duplex you would call it, and well, it's actually in a fourplex, but each person owns the up and the down unit, and they didn't make any money on it at all. It just covered their HOA fees, basically. So they ended up subdividing, selling the lower unit, and then they just come in the winter when they want to stay in their unit, and they don't even rent it out otherwise, because they can afford the fee, the small amount of property tax here and the HOA fees, they can afford it. So they decided they didn't even want the hassle of having someone in their property, considering they weren't even making money on it. The other thing to consider is that if you can find existing owners that live in the property, that would be great. And ideally, if you do have a realtor or a salesperson, it's great if they actually invest in the same property that they're trying to sell you. So if they do invest in the market, do they own there? So for example, with ECI, one of the properties they have is the Best Western that I'm going to talk about. The VP of sales actually bought a condo in there and lives there. So obviously she believes in that product. Next thing I want to talk about is financing a property. So banks in Belize don't usually finance property, and if they do, interest is very high, not like what we're used to. So it's usually between 10 to 13%. The good thing is sometimes there's developer or seller financing available. Now, the other thing is if you do get financing, you don't get title to the property until it's fully paid for. So it's more like an agreement for sale in Canada. And what this means is it's very easy to get this financing. They don't need to credit qualify you, check your income, anything like that, because if you don't make payments, they just get the property back, right? So that's something to consider. So it's different than in Canada where we get title and the bank has security against the property. Another difference is how you paid when you're building a property. Because I've built many brand new houses in Edmonton, and usually everything goes through the builder. And obviously you have a lawyer that takes all the payments. In Belize, they don't use escrow accounts. So of course you definitely should be paying using draw payments instead. If you pay up front and somebody doesn't come through, you're out a lot of money, and that's a terrible idea. If you do want to use a lawyer here, the cost is 1 to 2% of the price. Therefore, most people use a closing company instead. Now, the thing about the draw payments, it is a little more challenging than I would have first expected. So you have to pay many different people. So obviously, the payments for the land were the first thing I had to pay. I had to pay a down payment. I financed the land, so I have monthly payments. That was very, very easy to do, no problem at all. Then I had to pay the architect for the plans. So the architect that designs the product in Mahogany Bay Village is from the US. So of course, to use his plans, you have to pay for them. So no problem there. Next thing is the project manager. You need one of these to manage the build, because if the builder's not doing something right or they're not according to the plans, you need someone to watch that. So that's the project manager's role. And I also pay the project manager draw payments. Then, of course, we have the builder who also takes draw payments. Luckily, the project manager tells me when I have to pay because they've went and done their review. They send me a detailed report telling me, okay, it's time for draw 3 on the casita or on the rent, because I'm building more than one property. In my case, I also had a different builder for the seawall and another one from the homes. And the reason for that is because the project manager was great. She told me that the seawall builder that she recommended is someone who had built many of the seawalls in the community, so had a lot of experience with it. And the other builder that I used for the homes just had an more affordable price point. And because I was on a budget, it's an investment property, I went with that builder. And I've had no problems at all with any of the people I'm working with, like the architect, the project manager, or the builder. So this has all worked really great. It's just that it is a lot more work. So even for furniture, I'm paying different suppliers. So I have to, first of all, I found a company that'll build wood furniture, which is great. I need custom made because tiny homes are small and you need stuff that'll fit specifically in them. So the project manager did recommend an option for a furniture company. And then he can build the furniture, and then he referred me to somebody where I can get the cushions and throw pillows made. So I had to go to this company separately, pick out all the fabrics, and then luckily they do get the measurements from the furniture guy to effectively make everything match. Then, of course, things like mattresses, all other things you have to get from other companies. And generally on the island, this is a lot harder to do. So in Belize City, there is a department store called Mirab, and many people buy a lot of their furniture and decor items from there. They even have Ashley Furniture product, which is fairly affordable. But know that, on the island, you're not going to go find all the types of furniture and things that you're going to find at home. The other thing to note is that building is a lot more work than at home, like I said, and the cost is not as cheap as you would expect either. So my build was around $130 per square foot, excluding appliances and air conditioning and landscaping, and most land is also not cheap. So the land I bought at Mahogany Bay Village, it's $150,000 US. Now the good thing is it does fit 3 tiny homes, as I mentioned, but this isn't the type of land that some people expect to get when they're coming to Belize. There is a lot more cheaper land. For example, I bought a piece of land at off-beach land close to Secret Beach, doesn't have any utilities, and that land is more like $30,000 to $35,000. But of course, that's where you're looking for appreciation. I don't want to build anything there because it's quite far. I mean, we love Secret Beach. We go there every Saturday. So eventually, once a town is developed there and utilities are in, then we'd want to build there. But for now, we needed something where, utilities were in and there was road access, and we know that tourists would be staying there once the market's back after COVID. Labor is cheaper here, of course, but there's a lot of material that needs to be imported, which is part of the reason the price ends up being not as cheap as people would expect. And the thing I like about the labor being cheaper, for example, would be cleaners. So I get someone to come in and clean the place that we're renting, and it costs $25 US, which is a lot cheaper than what I pay at home to have a cleaner come in. So on the Real Estate Guys Discovery Tour, I found out you can also buy in the Hilton Resort. So my property is about 5 lots down from where the Hilton is right now, but I don't have access to the Hilton amenities, their private beach club, their pool, that kind of thing. I'm putting a pool on my lot because of that. But if you do buy in the Hilton directly, you have access to all their amenities, and you don't have any restrictions on personal use, which many brands have. So that's something to consider as well. And this was one of the products that I had no idea even existed until I came here. And at times, the Hilton also has resales with financing available, because that's one of the things here is if you buy with the Hilton and there's no financing, for me, that was outside of my budget. But when there's a resale with financing, it could be different. We also found a developer on the tour that has bank financing on a range of products. So they have a resort that's becoming a Best Western, and they also have a tiny home community. So the Best Western, they actually just launched, well, they're just launching the Best Western as we speak, and they've been converting the units to be, in accordance with standards. So they released a brand new building pre-sale, and the price is starting just above 100,000. So that new building that they released on a webinar actually sold out in 72 hours. And it's because there's hardly any product around the 200 and less price range. And because these start about, they start around that price point, they're very, very popular. They're tiny homes as well. They're at a price point of $170,000. And these, they sold out the first phase of it, except some people don't pay and then a couple come available, that kind of thing. But these tiny homes are great models for sure. They're like they're smart home enabled, they're right on the water. The thing for me that's a problem to live in it would be that it only has water access. So you have to take a boat for it's only about a 4-minute boat ride, but because there's no road access for me as a runner, it doesn't work well. And we really like walking in the community, going to get groceries, all those kind of things. So not the right community for us, but definitely they have a lot of interesting developments throughout Latin America that are definitely worth looking at. So the key in an investment, of course, is profitability. So although appreciation is a key in a developing market like Belize, I never factor this into my pro forma because it's so hard to predict. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball. All I know for sure is that I'm paying down my loan on the land, so that is a definite thing. If I make those payments, that's equity I have in the property. And then if I do a good enough pro forma and my occupancy is correct and my other estimates are good, then I could potentially cash flow the property. Now, because cash flow is more difficult, it is really important to examine the options closely and to do a pro forma. So I decided to invest in Belize due to the increases in tourism before COVID and the fact that the markets continue to develop. And so that's obviously one of the reasons many people are looking to invest here. And also there's a huge expat community here on the island as well. The key is to be diligent to find the right property depending what you're looking for. And again, if you only look at the internet, because it's based on marketing budgets, you may not find everything that is available. So I decided to build tiny homes, and the reason really was that I needed an affordable option, and because you can fit 3 tiny homes on one lot, that's a great option when land is expensive as it is here. Ambergris Caye is the biggest tourist destination in Belize because it has the 2nd largest barrier reef in the world. So because of that, obviously, and it's on the Caribbean, you're not going to expect to find beachfront property near town that's going to be very affordable. And so my property in Mahogany Bay Village is obviously a little bit more affordable than, say, beachfront property, and it's still very accessible. It has road access, that kind of thing, and is still a very affordable option. So some other resources to look at. So I already talked about the Real Estate Guys radio show. So this is one of the podcasts you can listen to on Belize. ECI Developments, the one that has the Best Western and the tiny home communities, they have webinars, including a Belize 101. So I'd highly recommend looking at that just to learn more about Belize as a market and some of the misconceptions about Belize they talk about as well in this one. And then the Real Estate Guys have another upcoming discovery tour in April. So the one we went to in January was actually sold out. There was 17 of us in total there. I think there was about 4 people on the wait list, so they scheduled another event that's in April. So there's a link here to check that out. In terms of discovery tours, there's tons of different ones in Belize that you can find on Ambergris Caye. I did a search for it and I found some from different places I haven't even been to, like different condo buildings, different real estate agents, all these different ones. But a lot of these are talking about their specific products. So not saying those are bad tours, but until you get an overview of the entire island and what you want to invest in specifically, it would be better if you could do one that highlights everything. So I'd recommend the Real Estate Guys discovery tour first, and then after you've done that, you could go do whatever discovery tour with whatever property you're interested in investing in, because they often will have one as well, right? And so if you have any other questions or you want referrals, I have my email here, and also my website. And again, you can subscribe to my newsletter on the website, and definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel to see updates on the tiny home village that I'm planning to do in the future. Thank you so much.